for this InDesign brochure assignment. It's only going to be two panels. I'm sure you have all seen something that looks something like a postcard, only it has had this shape rather than a postcard shape, so there's a front and a back. You may have got them as mailers, you may have seen them even here at IAIA. Right, and that's the design that you're going to be working on. And so to start, where you have previously possibly been working in interactive for PDF, this is not going to be an interactive document. So we're going to have it, we're going to go first to the essentials, right, which will give you the base materials that you'll need for this. Should you, as you proceed through, need other tools, remember you can always go to Advanced, which gives you an even wider range of available functions. So all of these have, if you go for book, all right, this isn't a book, so that will give you more information than you need. And once again, we're not doing interactive, so I would advise starting first with essentials. You are then going to be creating a new document. So as you click on Create New Document, this is where you are plugging in the specifications now. Now we have preset, you remember, it could be default, custom. We're going to call this custom. So you open a new document, you call custom. The intent is for print. And I'm also doing this on Camtasia, by the way, so if you need to review it later on, it should be up by this afternoon. So it's actually going to be, while it's only one card, essentially, it will have two faces to it. But you don't want them to be facing pages. So instead, it's going to be two pages, starting at page 1. The page size, now if we were doing for web layout, that's when we would use the pixels. We're not doing a compact disc or a business card. It's actually none of these. So we're going to leave it at newsletter. And we are going to leave the orientation at portrait. And remember, if you mouse over something, it lets you know what that is that's activated. The width of this brochure is going to be 4 inches. So by clicking in the width and then either deleting the whole numbers or backspacing, whatever, or you can use the arrows. So for example, if I'm in the height now, because I've done the 4, I could just click the down arrows until I get to 9 inches. So there are a couple of different ways you can put in the dimensions. Each page is going to consist of only one column, and we are going to bring the gutter to 0.0625. The margins we're actually going to bring way, way down to 0. Because I want you to see how this looks when we do that. Because you've been working in pages that have gutters in them. All right, we're going to have the bleed also 0 all the way across. So if I highlight that and hit 0, hit tab, hit 0, hit tab, hit 0, tab, 0, tab, 0, 0, 0. So now when I click OK, you'll note my new document shows no margins. It's actually just showing the complete size that that brochure would be. Do we all have a rectangle with a portrait orientation that looks like this? In essence, we've zeroed everything out. We're going to have a total bleed on this.
I just opened some.
Oh, okay. I was kind of sleepy this morning. It's only supposed to have one column. So we'll wait for, till we all have this page here. In essence, what we want on this page is we want to have the whole page completely filled. And we're going to work with this, and this is why I want to remind you that if you come from the days of old layout where you were literally cutting, pasting, and then putting layers on top of layers, that's what we're working with here. Are any of you old enough to remember color forms? The toy? Color forms. There was a black plastic background, and then there were little rubber cutouts that you actually put on the black background and then kind of pushed it down. And it could be an animal, and then you could put a fence, and you put that down on top of that animal, and all of a sudden the animal was behind the fence, and that was another layer. You could actually create textures, what they were called color forms, right? And this is what we're working with here, the idea that by creating layers, we can actually work on different parts of the document and actually making other parts of it vanish. And the way that we have the layers arranged from bottom to top is the order in which the viewer would see it. So we could actually have a bottom layer obscured partially by the layer on top of it. So we need to be aware of that concept of layers. Your hand was going up? It's still opening?
Well, I set up the...
Just go to essentials. Okay. Yeah, everything should be zeroed out. It should look like that rectangle. So go to File. File. Go to Document Setup. Scroll down further to Document Setup. A little bit higher. There you go. All right, 2 columns with click More Options. Unclick Facing Pages. Okay, now click OK. Let's see if we get rid of those. Okay, go to File. Go to Document Presets. Just completely X that out. Close this down completely and get right from the very beginning. Okay, new document. Okay, custom. Okay, unclick facing pages. Okay, then we're leave it there. Okay, bring this down on width. Bring it down 4 inches. Bring the height to 9 inches. 1 column. Bring the gutter. What did I have the gutter at? Do you remember? 0.625 inches. Okay, and then on the margins, they should all be 0. And everything else 0. Now we can click OK.
I'm sorry, 0.0625.
0.0625. Okay, I think we're here. Okay. So what we have is an opening page, an opening letter. And let's assume that this is our first page. Because if you scroll down, you'll see page 1, page 2. Now, if there was something you wanted to appear in the same place, looking the exact same way on both pages, where would I be working from to start? Master page, if I wanted to have something that was going to be identical for here. So for example, on the master page, when I double click on master, you'll note that I can't scroll down 2 pages anymore because I'm working with the master page. So suppose I wanted a little logo in the lower right hand side. All right, as soon as I put the logo there, it would automatically, once I drag it over to pages 1 and 2, it would do that pre-formatting. Are you with me so far? Yeah, did you unclick facing pages when you laid it out? So you can go ahead and delete that, or maybe if you go back to document presets or document, let me go back here. File, document setup, if you unclick facing pages, the A master. You there? Okay, if you right-click on A Master and then click on Master Options, see if you can change the number of pages to 1, because it probably says 2. Okay, I'll be right there. Instead, go to Essentials. Right-click on Master. Go to Options for A Master. Change the 2 to 1. Click OK. Wham! It's a thing of beauty when Steve is on duty. Now and then. Okay, so we're all at this page. Now suppose I wanted every page to have a halftone of gray. The way I would do this, and I'm not telling you this is how your assignment's going to be, I'm showing you how to do this should this be a design choice on your part, okay? So suppose I wanted everything in a halftone of gray. I wouldn't be doing this page per page because I want the whole document to do it, so I'm working on the master page. So when I'm on the master page, I then, by clicking on the ellipse tool, and instead go to rectangle tool, because I want to create a rectangle, and I am going to take that rectangle, and now what I'm doing is I am creating, in essence, a layer. And I'm going to have that rectangle completely fill my document area. There are a couple of different things I could do here. I could go to color, and I could sample a color. And remember, this is for print, and that's why I'm not getting RGB. Remember, when we're doing something for print, as we look at the printer, we are looking at cyan, magenta, yellow, and what color is added for contrast? It is a B word. It's not baloney. It's black. And how is black represented when we're doing something for print? What letter represents black? Starts with a K. That's why it's CMYK. I know this was like 2 weeks ago, and it's like going back to the days of cavemen. But yeah, I know we can get through this. All right, so your color is, okay, when you click on, oh, you gotta be, you're in essentials, right? You're on color. Okay, click color again. These are, click on swatches and see if we get there first. Click into the C and watch what happens.
You go to color, you click on that box with the red line through it, and it should just do color instead of just black.
If you see your see what it is changing here now. Now if you are up in the red line, go ahead and click that. See where it's sorry. And that means there is no color assigned. I thought you would assign the black here. I'm sorry. Okay, so now you click on color. It samples that color and brings it in. Okay? Now, well, if you did, watch what happens. Click that little swirly. Yeah, now click the little curly arrow. See what it did? Now click it again. Now a couple of things here. In essence, when you are looking at a box that has a red slash through it, it means there is no color assigned to it. Now what happens, so if I got a fill of black here, there's no color assigned and it's showing me a grayscale. If I wanted it to have a color as well as a stroke, now do you see this little curved arrow in the upper right hand side? If I click that, it switches it. And you'll see that what used to be that kind of, I don't know what color you'd call that, kind of orange. If I click it again, I've gone from that. So it's switching colors. Right now, when we look at CMYK, we also then, because sometimes you can go online and find a CMYK chart that will tell you the different values you can actually plug in. So suppose I plug in 25, 23, 12, and 0. I've assigned it a different color. Which is more of a kind of purpley color. You see that kind of purpley color there that I programmed in the... So try that out. Just try putting in random numbers and watch what happens. So suppose I want to change that color again that I've plugged in for the 10%. Instead, I'm going to turn it to 5, 5, 5, 5. You'll note that it's gotten just a little bit lighter gray. And by dragging along the black, from the black square, I can also bring that way down. So I've got an even lighter gray by bringing that forward. So instead of 4%, I want it 2%. So I now have a very, very light gray background. Have you all been able to manipulate that layer? So now if I go back to pages, because I did that on the master page, what do you think page 1 would look like at this point? You'll note they all have the changes I assigned now to the master page. I made master page that color, so I've only got one page showing, but because I did it on the master page, any page that's based on the master page will now have that as the background. So what I've done is I've created a master page that means that everything I do will have that half tone of gray in the background. Did that make sense? Okay? Now I'm going to switch so that I'm working only on page 1. And I'm doing this just in a theoretical sense, because I'm not going to use any actual stuff for the brochure. I'm just showing you what we're doing with layers on a brochure. So now I'm going to put a rectangular frame. No, I am on page 1. I double-clicked on page 1 because we're only going to work on page 1. Right now, I've got that frame in such a way that I would be inserting either a graphic that I'm pulling from another file. And in essence, what it's doing is like creating a little placeholder. And that's often what I use the frames for, is to just make little placeholders of how I think something would look on a layer. All right, so I could have that assigned as a graphic. I could turn it to text. And you'll note if I turn it into a text frame, what happened to the box. So right-click on the frame, and when I scroll down to content, if I make it a graphic, how does it let me know there's going to be a graphic there? X. If it's going to be text, it will vanish that. So sometimes if I'm just playing around with layout, I'll use the frames. But I'm going to get rid of that frame altogether. And if it's highlighted, I only need to hit delete. Now, what I'm actually going to do, you'll note if I have, when we're doing the text, we can have the type on a path tool or just the type tool. You're all familiar with that tool. You remember that one? The type on a path tool. So for example, if I have type on a path tool, when I click, I'm going to have difficulty doing anything. Why? The object's not there to mess with. So you always want to make sure that you've got your type tool first. So now, when I draw the text box, I'm just going to type in 4 letters. Your alma mater. I-A-I-A. When I highlight it, I want to change the typeface to, I'll scroll down here and see what I would want to work with right now. Ah, heck, I'll go with Verdana. So I've changed the typeface, and you'll note that it's only occurring on page 1. I want to change the type size. I'm going to make it 72 point. I can, if I wanted to, make it larger, because 72 is kind of the northern end by clicking the up arrow. I'm sorry, by clicking in the box, I could type in 90. And what it's telling me, it's giving me a little red arrow that I can't fit it within that box. And you'll note as soon as I did that, did you see the little arrow or error appear down at the bottom? It let me know I did something that was not permissible. Hold on a second here. I'm having a hard time with this. So if I drag the text box a little bit larger, I get rid of that little error, because the 90 point was too large to fit in the text box that I drew. Did that make sense? And it let me know with the little error message down below, as well as the little red flag at the corner of your document. Sometimes you may have experienced frustration when you were doing your assignments. And there are 2 places to look: at the error message down below, as well as the little flag on the actual object with which you are working. So I've now got IAIA, and I've got it in the color black. But I'm feeling real, I'm feeling real Southwest today. You'll note that I have a stroke, for example. If it was a line, what do you think I could do to change the color of these letters? I'll give you a hint first. I highlight them. Now what? And you'll note now that it's highlighted, it's still got the Verdana 90 point. So give it a go. Change it to teal. Yeah. So how are you going to change it to teal? What do you think you would do? Okay, well, where do you see colors on the fonts? Is it fill? Is that what you want? If I do fill, yeah, it'll change it to that green, but I don't want it to be that green. So what do you think I need to do? What's that? Well, let's try that. What do you think I should do?
Go to the swatches and then T.
Hold on a second here. What do you think T stands for? So if I click on T, highlight, move it down to, we'll say, green. I could try it that way. Are there any other things I could do?
Yeah, we can highlight it and go to color.
Okay, I can go highlight, go to color. I can go to the white it out. Now, suppose I want teal. I told you there was a way online. You can find out the code for teal. So what do you think your next step would be? How would you find out the teal? Open a browser. Type in CMYK codes. So you go to Chrome or whatever. Open up a browser. You could type CMYK color. CMYK selected color codes, for example. This is going to show me maybe all gray tones. Scroll down far enough, and I knows we'll hit something close to teal. Oops. That's not teal, but I went and I just grabbed the color off of the code chart.
I found teal. It's cyan 86, magenta 31.
Okay, hold on a second here. So we'll plug it in.
Cyan 86, magenta 31, yellow 49, black 8.
What was the third one?
49,
And then black 8?
yes.
Well, I'll be darned. I went the other way. Hold on.
Once it's highlighted, and then you punch in the value.
Yeah, I did, but I screwed up on my. Let me get back to my original. What was the numbers again?
Let's see here. Cyan 86, magenta 31, yellow 49, black 8.
I forgot to highlight. Try it again.
86, 31, 49, 8.
So by going to the hex code, or I'm sorry, the CMYK, there's a whole chart. It's kind of like, has anyone ever had to buy house paint? and you go and you look at the color chart, this is pretty much close to what you'd be looking at for those different swatches of color. All right, so you can actually alter the color in your text by messing around with that. Okay, hold on a second here. Wrong one. So I've got IAIA looking all turquoise. Okay? Now what I'm going to do, so what I've got so far, I've got a master page that's all grayed, because if I go back to the master page, you'll know IAIA isn't on there. But if I click on page 1, IAIA is there, because I only worked on page 1. So I've got one object. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to add another object. And we're going to put it in relation to IAIA. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. So you can get there easily if you're in Essentials or Advanced, but we'll do it right now. So if I'm in Layers, underneath Pages, are we all there? Now you'll note on Layer 1, if I unclick the eyeball, what happened? If I click on layers, it shows me one layer, the first one that we're working on, past the master, all right? I unclick the eyeball. What happened? Yeah, it's there. It's just you don't want to look at it at that time. It's still there as a layer. I could make it so that I cannot do anything to change that layer. Sometimes when we're working in multi-layered documents, we might not realize we've got 2 layers going at once, and all of a sudden something vanishes and we don't know what happened to it. All right, so it's a good idea if you know you're set with that layout on that layer to lock it. That way you can't do any further changes on it. So I'm just going to lock that right now. I want to create a new layer. So by scrolling down to the little, looks like someone turning a page up. Can you all see that little icon? It creates another layer. So I've got layer 1 is being locked and I can see it. I'm going to take the eyeball off and I'm now going to be working in layer 2. Layer 2, I'm going to create a box. And I want that box to be a different color. And go to color. I'm going to make this really ugly. So I've now created that color box. Now suppose I want the box to have a curved corner. I don't want it to be rectangular, I want it to be curved. I can do the same thing with photographs. You were doing that already. What do I need to do? Okay, I need to touch the orange box.
It is on the right top corner, about half an inch down. Oh, you have to put your selector button on.
My selector button.
Okay, and then now you can touch your yellow box
You all see that? Yours never works? Really? Okay, I'll get a look at it when after we take a break. See why it's not doing that? All right, that's one way to do it. There's another way to do it too. I can highlight it and I can go to and ideally, you see what happened when I hit the little bevel up at this, or I'm sorry, this little tool up here? When I change it and then I drag, oops, sorry. I can alter the shape of the object, the corners. So I'm going to leave it that really kind of ugly pink, and it's now that color. Now when I go back to layers, I want to see the IAIA again. So I now have an ugly pink box in front of IAIA. What I could do, if I want the IAIA to take precedence in viewing over that box, in other words, I want the box to be underneath IAIA so that IAIA would float on top of this ugly box. Because I want to drive the viewer crazy. Give me a second here. Oh, layout. Oh, arrange. Under object, arrange, it's supposed to let me go back. Give me a second here. If I select the first object above, just made an ass out of myself. Okay, showing the layer, I got IAIA. So what I've done is that within the layers, I can move the objects around. So for example, I can have both IAIA and the rectangle on the same layer, or I can have IAIA now be the second layer I laid down, which is on top. So for example, if I take IAIA and I hold on to that within layer 2, hold the mouse down and I drag it, because it's on layer 1, they're both on the same layer, I've obscured the IAIA. So I could take that IAIA and put it into layer 2. Or if I want the rectangle to be in layer 2 and IAIA in layer 1, so by grabbing on the actual thing that you've created and dragging it around, you can arrange how it appears on the page. So what I've done, even though I drew the rectangle second, on the second layer, I put it back to layer 1 in such a way now that I've got IAIA floating on this rectangle because I changed IAIA to layer 2. So the layer with the lowest number is also the lowest down on the page. So if I hide layer 1, all I see is IAIA, which is the highest layer. Or if I hide layer 2, all I see is the box. So how do you think I would create a new layer? What do I do to create a new layer? I click the little create new layer. Now I have layer 3 that I'm working with, and I want to hide the other 2 so that it doesn't interfere with what I'm doing. What do I do to hide layers 1 and 2? I click the eyeball. So now I just have layer 3. And for layer 3, I'm going to put a photo now. So if I go to Place, under File, and I'm going to go to one of the photos. When I click Open, it'll give me the little thumbnail. If I place the thumbnail, it's way too big. Now I want to scale this photo proportionately to the page. Remember, if I hold down the Command Shift and then drag, it will shrink the photo without changing its proportions. So Command Shift, I shrink the photo. So I've now got on layer 3 a photo. So now I've got, if I click on layer 2, IAIA appears. If I click on layer 1, IAIA with the ugly pink bordered rectangle. Now suppose I wanted to put IAIA on top of the photo of the image. If I was just to click on IAIA and drag it, you'll note I drag it down there. It shows me that there's something there, but it's not there. It is, but it's in a different layer. So how would I get IAIA to float on top of that image? What would I need to do? I grab the layer with the photo, I move it to layer 2. I grab IAIA, move it to layer 3. Wham! Is that magic or what? Do you understand what layers are doing? Are you able to understand how to create with and manipulate different parts of layers? So that when you are doing a brochure, you can have some rather interesting effects. For example, so if I go to Print Overview, I see how this would look if I was to print it out right now. So what you're doing in layout for a brochure, and even in a catalog cover, for example, you won't be doing it as much with the catalog pages, but with a brochure with a cover that you think in terms of layers and objects placed in relation to each other, not only as they are next to each other or above or below, but actually how they sit on top of each other. Because you can create some interesting effects. This is not an interesting effect, all right? This is actually pretty dang ugly. All right, it looks more like, I don't know, like you'd see for some kid's locker room in, 7th grade. But you could, for example, create a frame. I'm just going to delete this now. I could create a bit of a frame for this painting by going to rectangle. I draw one, and I'm going to shrink this painting just a touch. And then I move the rectangle to layer 1. And then I want the rectangle to have a different border. So I click to edit the corners. And I now have a rounded border frame around the painting. Are you with me so far? Can you see that? I could even turn that whole thing into a clickable object. Suppose I wanted to make it into a clickable object. What would I need to do? I need to make it interactive, but I want the whole thing to be an interactive object, so I got to make sure that, because it's layers right now, so what I'd want to do to make sure they are going to all react the same way when I click on it is I'm going to hide by holding down the Shift key. So I click the painting, I hold down the Shift key, and I click the border. Under Object, I want to first group them so that no matter where anyone clicks on this, it will behave the same way. I would then go to Object. I would go to Interactive, as you said. I would convert to a button. And when someone on button 1 on click, I could have them go to wherever I want them to go. But this isn't going to be interactive. You will create an interactive version of this in a little bit, but I want you to create the PDF one first. And by Command Z, I can get back to where I was originally. So your assignment, if I go back to the assignment, you're going to create a 2-panel brochure. It's going to be 4 by 9 inches. You already created a document that advertises the opening of Art in the Raw at the Primitive Edge Gallery at the Institute of American Indian Arts. The exhibit would hypothetically open January 31st, 2014, close February 28th, 2014. You would be using 1 or 2 images from the exhibit. You could have them either both on the front panel and one on the back, or both on the front panel or one on each panel. Your front panel has to have 1 image on it. You're also going to have the IAIA logo, which I'll put up so you can download it. And by the way, you cannot use it for anything else other than for this assignment, because it's branded and only the people that are in levels of administration much higher than I am are even allowed to open this, so I'm giving you contraband. Don't use it anywhere else. It's just for the purposes of this assignment. The back panel is going to include a small text box, which includes the text for the exhibit, which was The Art and the Raw began in 1999, all the way to Unrestricted and Raw. There is an opening reception, hypothetically, from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Primitive Edge Gallery, January 31st. The exhibit hours are going to be Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. You'll have the address for IAIA. You'll have the IAIA telephone number. I forgot to list in here, you should also list the IAIA website. So I'll add that in just a moment. You'll also have an attribution. Oh, you're going to have you as the contact information with your email address. And then the attribution of the image or images you chose, who's the artist, what's the title, what's the medium. And then at a very small scale, on the second panel is going to be the IAIA logo. So the logo will appear in two places, large on the first page, small on the second. How you design it is entirely up to you. I strongly suggest you avoid either being, I would strongly encourage, asymmetrical orientation and justification. In other words, make things visually interesting. Don't have everything symmetrical right down the middle, or oriented right toward the middle, or justified right down the middle. Play around a little bit. Yes, it's okay to have things full justified. It's okay to have things justified middle here and there, but also use some asymmetrical, and take a chance. Take a type. For example, take your letters and actually do something really strange. Let me get back to that little curly thing again. Don't be afraid to put things slightly askew. I'm sorry? Yeah. That's 2 weeks from today. So I'll make sure to put in here, include the IAIA website and your email. I'll do that right now. And it's 10:41, take a break. What the heck, take 19 minutes today. I'm in a good mood. That's 2 cigarettes if you smoke. Just 1 second, because I want to do this before I forget, okay? And then go to you and then Zani.